Hi, everybody. I'm John Summers with Us Against Alzheimer's, and today I'm joined by Dr. Roman Jaeschke. He's a highly respected researcher, clinician, and professor at McMaster University. Dr. Jaeschke, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate having you.
Oh, my pleasure.
So let's jump right into it, if you don't mind. In 1989, you wrote an article that introduced the concept of minimally clinically important difference, or what we often refer to as MCID. And I want to read what you wrote then and then get a little bit of a better understanding from you. You said MCID is the smallest difference in score and the domain of interest which patients perceive as beneficial and which would mandate, in the absence of troublesome side effects and excessive costs, a change in the patient's management. What does that mean in simple terms?
The question here is how much you would need to improve your health status in whatever way you define it, physical, psychological, functional, in order to go through the exercise of subjecting yourself to the regimen, which may have, again, different degree of effort, cost, time requirements, social function requirements, and so forth.
And when you're talking about benefit, you're talking about in patients' daily lives, right? They're what they perceive as benefit, right?
The evolution of this concept is reflected in names. We called it minimal clinically important difference, and somehow clinically was associated with profession, with clinicians. We actually moved from minimal clinically important difference, MCID, to minimal important difference, because as we were applying this concept, it became clear that the judge and jury about what is important should not likely be a clinician, but should likely be the most interested party in this equation, which is the patient. What is minimally clinically important to a clinician may be much less important to the patient and may be totally unimportant to a caregiver. So the importance of defining who is the judge and jury in terms of what is important is absolutely crucial.
Would a scale that measures whether a clinician believes that there has been, in their view, significant difference since the last time they saw a patient be a good way to measure MCID?
The clinician assessment and clinician judgment is an important one, but I wouldn't say also that it is the most important one or the only one. So I wouldn't dismiss it offhand, for example, saying, no, we are only interested in perceptions of the patients. I would be interested in perception of clinicians, especially at the stage of a generation of such instrument for the patients, because if those instruments measuring the physician impression or clinician impression in general, and patient's impression and family impressions, if they are discordant, we obviously have a problem which we have to resolve.
Yeah, and you have really come up with a lot of terms to help people get a better understanding of this. And in fact, since 1989, you introduced 2 additional terms to your work, including patient important outcomes and human important outcomes. Can you tell us why that was important to you to do that? And then also tell us the difference between the 2?
What became very clear is that if we tell the patients we would like to treat you because your hemoglobin A1C will drop by 0.5%, despite all the advertisement in TV, people have no clue what it means. And obviously, people have no idea what it does to their well-being or function. So around the beginning of 1990s, again, we came, instead of talking about important changes, we started to talk about patients' important changes and patients' important outcomes. And that required that rather than asking what's your FEV1 or what is your hemoglobin A1C, we need to ask the patient, how are you feeling today? And do you feel any better since we last seen you, or do you feel any worse, or do you feel unchanged? But equally important, people are around, people who may be dramatically affected by therapeutic or administrative decisions which we are making. And here we came with the label of human important outcomes. It's not only patient which counts.
What do you say to those who question the value of the patient experience?
It would be extremely patronizing way of approaching therapeutic process. I do not believe people would have this, again, extreme approach of devaluing patients' experiences. I think there may be people who value, again, physiological parameters and what we can measure through our measurement instruments. There is a value in both approaches. It almost looks to me like ideological or philosophical debate here. The goal of our profession is to influence how people feel and how well they live. And the ultimate judges here have to be those who are subjected to it. We may think whatever we want, but in the end, our patients and their close by simply know better.
Well, Dr. Jaeschke, thank you so much for the important work you do, for your insights this morning, and for being an important part of this important conversation we're having today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye.